السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. نحمده ونسبحه ونقدسه على آلائه ونعمائه، ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، إلها واحدا أحدا فردا صمدا قيوما. ونشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وترحم على محمد وآل محمد كأفضل ما صليت وسلمت وباركت وترحمت على إبراهيم وآل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. وصل اللهم وسلم على خلفاء نبيك وأوصيائه وأهل بيته وأحبته علي أمير المؤمنين وقائد الغر المحجلين، وعلى البضعة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، وعلى سبطي نبي الرحمة وسيدي شباب أهل الجنة الحسن والحسين عليهما السلام، وعلى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل مخرجه. عباد الله، أوصيكم وأوصي نفسي بتقوى الله ولزوم أمره. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: وإذا أراد الله بقوم سوءا فلا مرد له وما لهم من دونه من وال. If God intends for a community an affliction, a trials and tribulation, no one can stop him from doing so. And no one can avert this affliction from taking place. And such community have no protectors against God. Today's sermon is entitled "The Spike in Coronavirus in Our Communities, in Our States, Requires a Spike in Our Relationship with God." The latest news that we watch, we hear, we read from news outlets are gloomy, grim. They are not promising. They all speak about the spike in this virus, in COVID-19. They speak about our health system, our hospitals being overwhelmed with patients who are infected with this virus. Health officials in our state and throughout the nation are advising us to refrain from traveling during this season, refrain from gathering even with our extended family members. They are advising us to follow the health guidelines and the health protocols, which is something good, which is something we must do. And we must heed the call and heed the advice in order for us to protect ourselves, our families, and our community members, and our nation. There are two elements that are required to eliminate and eradicate this virus. One is the human element, the second is the divine element and divine factor. When it comes to our role, we must act responsible. We must work together. We must help each other. We must be conscious and wise enough to follow the health protocols. When we leave homes, our homes, we must wear the mask. When we go to our offices, when we come back home, or even when we are staying at home, we must wash our hands like a surgeon. Cleanse our hands. We must keep the social distance with those who are not part of our families. These things has to be followed. This is our share. This is our responsibility. This is our duty. Having said that, we should not forget the second element. Many people only speak about the first element, the human role, our role, the healthcare professional role, healthcare professionals' role. But they don't speak about the second element, which is the divine role, the divine element, the divine intervention also plays a role. God says in Surah At-Tawbah, chapter 9, verse 51, قُلْ لَن يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا. O Prophet Muhammad, say to your community and others, nothing would touch us unless what God has prescribed upon us. إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا. هُوَ مَوْلَانَا. He is our protector. He is our guardian. He is our caretaker. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. And upon God let the believers put their trust. In God let them put their trust. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Put your faith in God. Put your trust in God. In chapter 13, Surah Al-Ra'd, verse 11, وَإِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِقَوْمٍ سُوءًا فَلَا مَرَدَّ لَهُ وَمَا لَهُم مِّن دُونِهِ مِنْ وَالٍ. If He intends to bring you this virus to your home, to your family, to yourself, you can't do anything. You cannot have a patron against God other than God. Nothing can repel God's decree and God's decision. So to be overwhelmed with fear, anxiety, with uncertainty is not healthy, is not something good. To lose faith in God, to forget about the second element, which is the divine intervention, to be pessimistic always, to be gloomy, to be unhopeful, not to see a light at the end of the tunnel, to be a pessimist is not healthy, is not good for yourself, neither your family or your community. Don't always anticipate the worst. Yes, we take precautions. We act wisely. We act responsible. We heed the call. We do not rebel. We do not become arrogant when it comes to the advice of the health officials in our counties, in our cities, in our country, in our states. We respect these guidelines, definitely. But at the same time, we have to be reasonable. We should not overwhelm ourselves with fear, anxiety. We should not spend the nights being unable to sleep, thinking, what will happen to me if I get infected tomorrow? What will happen to my family? What will happen to my children? There is God. There is a caretaker. هو مولانا وعلى الله فليتوكل المؤمنون. He's Maulana. He's the caretaker. He's the guardian. He's the cherisher. He's the sustainer. Who sustained you for 50 years or 60 years or 70 years other than God? You do your share and you leave the rest with God. And there is no need for worries. There is no need for fear, unreasonable fear. Live your life, go about your life and your activities, but use precaution and use reason. My friends, we cannot repel death if death has been prescribed upon us. Neither the whole world can repel death. And an example of that, very obvious example, how many presidents, powerful presidents, prime ministers, leaders, so far during these 9 months have been infected with COVID-19? How many? Many of them. And many of those presidents and prime ministers, they lead strong nations, powerful nations. They have very good healthcare system. And they enjoy, those presidents, those dignitaries, enjoy the best health service, the best doctors, the best surgeons, the best health advisors, the best medicine, which is not available for others. One of the presidents gave him, who was infected with COVID-19, gave him a medicine that cost $100,000. $100,000, which is not available for the citizens and the subjects of that country. So they enjoy these amenities and these privileges, but yet they were infected. And some of them almost died. Some of them were on the ventilators for several days. It means that you cannot. Some rich people died of COVID-19. Some of them were not only millionaires, they were billionaires. They died. Their money could not help them. They had a lot of money and they needed a little bit of oxygen. They could not find it. Because God says in His book, فَإِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهُمْ لا يستأخرون ساعة ولا يستقدمون. When their term comes, meaning death, neither an hour they're going to be delayed, nor an hour they're going to be expedited. When the term comes, it comes on schedule, on time, neither before nor after. God says to the Prophet, إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتُونَ. إِنَّكَ مَيِّت. You are dying. He didn't say to him, you will die. There is a difference. There is a difference. Look at the verse. إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ. He did not say to him, you will die. He said, you are dying. And there is a difference between you are dying and between you will be dying. You are dying means, like I'm saying, I'm sure 100% that I'm traveling tomorrow. I would say, I'm traveling tomorrow. I would not say, I will be traveling. I am traveling, means undoubtedly. I'm determined to travel. Nothing is going to stop me from traveling. So you say, I'm traveling tomorrow. God is saying to the Prophet, إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتُونَ. You are dying and they are dying. Meaning, there is no escape. I'm not going to change my mind about this. We all are dying. We all are walking to death, but with different timings, different schedules, different appointments. But we are walking to death. Nobody is going to survive. Every day I hear news about people who died. We used to think that death is reserved for those who are over 80 years old. Nowadays we see people dying in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s. People who planned to get married, rather than getting married, they died. People who were graduating, almost graduating from their schools after so many tough years of studying and dedication. Death did not allow them to experience the graduation, took them away. Some people, they purchased a home, a new home, and before moving into their new homes, they died. إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتُونَ. It's a fact. It is a fact. No one can prevent death. No one can escape death. No one can cure. There is no cure for death. There is no cure for death. And COVID-19 is a very vivid example. Some powerful people with special privileges died of this COVID-19 despite having money and having advisors and having a pool of health workers and doctors and nurses, and others who have no money, no food to eat, they were cured from this. They were infected and they were cured. This means that life and death is in the hands of God, not us. Yes, we do our share. We do our best to protect ourselves, to maintain our health, to maintain our hygiene, to stay away from this virus, deadly virus, but then we leave the rest to God to decide. Some people say, my husband, my wife, my son was infected. I don't know how. They don't leave their homes, but they were infected. Yes, it's true. There are people who leave their homes every single day for the last 9 months. Nothing happened to them. They are still healthy. And there are people who never left their homes and they were infected. Because God knows. Because God is the one who plans. Because there is another factor, another element beside the human element, which is the divine element. We decide something and God decides something else for us. So there is no need to be overcome by fear, by anxiety. Some people are petrified. No need for these types of uncertainties in your life. This spike, recent spike, and I don't know whether this is the second wave or the third one or the fifth one or the seventh one. I lost count. This spike and the one that is going to happen in the future, thanks to Dr. Fauci, who's giving us glad tidings every time he appears on the screen, requires vigilant responsibility, caution, but also requires a spike in our relationship with God. Because anyways, we are leaving. If not this year, 2020, it will be 2021. If not 2021, 2025. If not 2030. If not 2040. We have to leave. The departure has been decreed upon us. The time, we don't know about it. God knows the time. So we have to be prepared. And the best preparation is to have a spike in our friendship with God, in our relationship with God, in our connection to God. That is the best solution. That is the best remedy. That is the best cure. That what brings peace of mind. And God says in His book, Surah An-Nahl, chapter 16, verse 97, من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. If you do good, and you have faith in God, and you do good, you don't abuse, you don't corrupt, then we're going to provide them فَلَنُحْيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. We're going to provide them with a beautiful, peaceful, stable life. A life of content, a life of deep happiness, a life of acceptance, قبول. فَلَنُحْيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And we would reward them for every step they take. We're going to reward them. My friends, we ask always God to remove this calamity and this affliction from the entire nation of earth, not just America, the nation of earth, from entire mankind, because we are one family. We, the over 7 billion people who live on a planet Earth, we are one family. So we have to wish for them what we wish for our own selves. We ask God to remove this calamity, this virus, inshallah. Before I conclude, again, Guide Academy, one of the successful Montessori schools in Anaheim, Orange County, Southern California, is open for enrollment now. They have from the K to the kindergarten through the 6th grade. And it is a good school. You learn science, you learn English. I mean, your son, your daughter, not yourself. And also they learn the Holy Quran. They learn Islam. They learn how to be strong and healthy in their mind, in their soul, and their bodies. So if you have kids at home, enroll them in this academy. They have a website, which is www.guideacademy.org. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات. تابع اللهم بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات. For those who passed away during the last few days, I mentioned some of them last night. I would mention another scholar who passed away in Chicago, Illinois, about 10 days ago. Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Hussein al-Jalali, a scholar, a researcher who provided the Islamic library with many good work and good researches, passed away at the age of 79. Originally was born in Karbala. His origin from the Tibet, from Kashmir, but they, a couple of 100 years ago, moved to Karbala, and then he moved to Najaf to study, and then he came back in the late 70s, settled in Chicago, and he was very active in the academic field, religious field, and many people converted to Islam, to the school of Ahlul Bayt on his hands. He passed away, and we're going to pass away. It's just a matter of time. When I was eulogizing him, I recited this verse from the Holy Quran. من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه. Among the community of the believers are men who stood true to their covenant with God. فمنهم من قضى نحبه. Some have passed away. ومنهم, among them, which is us, ينتظر, on the waiting list. وما بدلوا تبديلا. They did not change. They stood strong on the path of Ahl al-Bayt, on the path of the Prophet and his family, on the path of truth. And we ask Allah to keep us strong to the last minute, to the last breath of our life. Strong, standing strong on the path of the truth, the path of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhimus salam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.